That's Fedoni, 24. Harburg is going to pull it down and go. That's why the young man can run. Nice. Boy, they just let him go. He's inside the 5 and down to the 3.
What's up, everybody? It's Parks, 1/4 of the Play the Fight Song podcast, back with another Husker recap. And it's not a good one. This is the first time I've had to talk about Nebraska where they're not coming off a win or going into a game that they should win and then losing. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how I do with processing a loss, because I do get frustrated, as many Husker fans do. But it wasn't great. Nebraska falls in East Lansing, Michigan State 20-17, and they just didn't look great from start to finish on the offensive side of the ball. And there's a lot of fan perspectives outside of mine going around that I'm not in love with. I just think that we're kind of lost onto what this football team is, and hopefully my thoughts can gather enough to give you an idea of kind of where I'm at and where this team is at. And I think I have a decent clue on what's going on in this team right now, and I think people are blind to kind of the things that have gone on for this team to end up where it's at. So let's start off with Michigan State and kind of what they brought to the table. Okay, so Michigan State, I know we were talking about in the preview, they were going to talk between two freshman quarterback, and you saw them both. Majority of the day was Caden Hauser. He was fine. I mean, he didn't have like the biggest day on the stat sheet, but he was more than serviceable. And I think if Heinrich gives us a performance similar, if not the exact same stat line, the game's different on the scoreboard. So Hauser went 13 for 20 for 165 and a score, to Heinrich's 12 for 28 for 129 and 2 picks. So, like I said, if we get Hauser's line there, I think that we find more success. We just didn't. Heinrich, we'll dive into him when we dive into our offense in general, but he wasn't great. Everybody knows it, and I don't think there's a way to tip-tap around it anymore, that he's costing this offense a lot. In the backfield for Michigan State, Nate Carter, we had talked on him. Nebraska's defense did a great job at limiting him. 15 carries, 50 yards, and he only averaged 3.3 yards per carry. So another great day for Nebraska's defense. Run defense, that is. We'll dive into the pass defense, but another great day for Nebraska's defense on the run side of the ball. I mean, limiting that type of a back that's handled a lot of teams and a lot of defensive lines throughout the year to 50 yards just is it's a positive sign, especially with what we have coming into Lincoln this week, which we'll preview on Wednesday. But I didn't think it was bad. I think if you think that the run defense was a major factor, you're wrong. So let's go to the outside where the difference is really made in this ball game. And the first name I mentioned when we talked about the outside, and that's Montori Foster Jr. 4 receptions, 94 yards, and a score. He was good, man. He 42 of those yards came on a trick play throw from Alante Brown. Ouch. But Montori was good. He had the biggest day by far on any part of the stat sheet for both teams. So he was as advertised, and he hurt us in some spots. He also made a catch that put Michigan State ahead 20-10 late in the game. I don't know, man. We'll get into the officiating part later, but I don't want to put the game all on that, because there was a lot of stats here that we're going to share that I don't think people are realizing happened, and that's a major part of the game. Offensively for Michigan State, they were 3 for 14 on third down, man. That's a 21% clip. So the people saying, oh, the black shirts had a down day, they really did. They just didn't look like themselves. Okay. I think that 20 points in a football game given up on the road is pretty good. That's pretty good. If we give up 20 points, I mean, is that really too much to ask? Is 21 points from your offense? Much to ask. And it may be too much to ask from this offense. Let me clarify. I know who we are. But if that's too much to ask, then you're not going to find yourself in a lot of good spots. I mean, they gave us big stops when we needed them. I mean, we got the ball back 2 times within the last 2 minutes of the game. That's pretty good. So I will not subscribe to the theory that the black shirts weren't as good this week. I thought they were perfectly normal. I thought in some spots they bend and they didn't break. And then sometimes they give up big plays. I know you've heard this 1,000 times since the game ended, but Michigan State, every time they scored, they had a 25-yard or more pass play on that drive. That's normal, but there were 4 of them. 4 scoring drives, and 2 of them were touchdowns, and the other 2 were field goals. Okay? It's pretty good. I mean, you just got to score 21 points. I don't think that's too much of an ask, like a tall task to score 3 touchdowns. Or, I mean, if you really want to get Nebraska, like 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and tie the game, like it's not that much to ask. So I don't want to put this one on the defense. And I think anybody who's saying that the defense having a bad day is what caused this, which I don't think there's many of you out there. I'm not going to discredit you that much, but I just think that, I mean, they were pretty good, man. They were, we would take that. In years past, we would lob onto that. I mean, that's pretty good. So I don't want to put anything on the black shirts. We only gave up 295 total yards in the game. 232 of those came through the air and 65 on the ground total. 232 yards through the air is a little bit more than what we normally give up, just a little bit, like 30 yards more is all. So I don't think it was an out of character day for them. We just didn't make the turning point plays, if that makes sense, on defense. Like we didn't have the interception or the fumble. I mean, they didn't turn the ball over. So if we didn't force any, they didn't do it. They didn't self-inflict any wounds on the offense side of the ball. And that's kind of where it goes with Nebraska and this team, is we're not going to end up on the winning side of the scoreboard. A lot of the time that happens. So it didn't shock me whatsoever, but it stinks that we lost another turnover battle. And we will obviously get into how those turnovers happened on offense. But they give up 9.7 yards per pass this week. I thought that was too high of a clip. And those may have been skewed numbers from the big plays, but 9.7 is too much. You can't give them 9.7 yards per pass. I mean, those 4 or 5 yard curls that we've been getting killed all year, they killed on, right? But 9.7 is too much. I mean, you're giving up a first down every time they throw the football. Like I said, those numbers could be skewed. But the defensive side of the ball for Michigan State, I mean, you got to give it to them, right? 7 sacks and 12 tackles for loss against Nebraska's offense. I thought it was a bad day from the offensive line in general, and we'll just sway this into Nebraska's offense. But one guy I want to highlight, Aaron Brule, was the leading stat guy for Michigan State on the defensive side of the ball. 7 tackles, 4 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. And honestly, that's not even a jump off the paper stat line, but they had very close people throughout their entire stat sheet on the defensive side of the ball to those stats. Like, it was just a good day across the board for them on defense. And I think that Nebraska fans are tired of saying that every week with this Nebraska team. Going into the Nebraska offense, we got to start with the offensive line. 7 sacks, way too many. However, this is a big part of this, is Heinrich is awful at sitting in the pocket. I mean, what is he doing sometimes? I was giving him a little leeway because he hadn't taken many snaps at this level. Those first 3 or 4 weeks, he had some happy feet back there, and I was like, he just got to get comfortable, kind of find his groove. He still hasn't, and that may be a product also of our offensive line not being consistent enough for him to feel comfortable in the pocket. But there were plays, and one of them stands out, and it was one of the 7 sacks that we gave up. But he dropped back. Jalen Lloyd came across a crossing route. That was his first read. It wasn't there initially. He just had to let him get past the backer, and he just took off. It's for him. He reads through his first progression, and then he kind of does this chip chop thing and tries to take off, I've noticed. So I hope he eliminates that. He's going to need to if this offense is going to find any bit of spark, because 7 sacks is just never going to be done. That's a Colorado line. I thought Ben Hart took a step back this week. I thought he's been great all year compared to his sample size that he's given us the past 3 years. I thought Ben Hart's probably the most improved player on the offensive line, and he got beat like a drum a couple of times this week. So he'll need to step back up when we play Maryland this week in Lincoln, but bad look for the offensive line. I mean, 12 tackles for loss is way too many. Jalen Lloyd's line as a wide receiver was 1 reception for negative 4 yards. I mean, we ran some, and I call them this because I am a fan, not as much of a Husker fan as I am a Vikings fan, but the Vikings are a team that run a 4th and 12 4-yard pattern all the time. And I thought a lot of our play calling was that this week, which I didn't like. Is it'd be like 3rd and 12, 3rd and 10, and we'd run like a 6-yard crosser and we'd get out of bounds and it'd be 4th and 4, which I hate. I don't get that. Run to the sticks or try and make a different play, but we just didn't set up a lot of good situations for our offense this week anyway, play calling wise, which I don't think he's been terrible either. We'll get into that. But anyway, we turned the ball over 3 times. All 3 came from Heinrich. Heinrich fumbled once and threw 2 picks. The first pick, inexcusable. It looked like, I don't know if that was a post pattern and Bullock couldn't get off that release, if there was some pass interference that they missed. But that ball was so far out of where it looked like it should have been because Bullock had him. If he threw that to the outside pylon, it's probably a touchdown. But it was so far away that I don't know. I feel like there's something going on that we missed in the scheme because it was that bad. So that was the first pick, inexcusable. Second pick, weird. I want to say weird. I don't really know how to justify it. Just a little high. It didn't look like Fedoni had a chance to make it. It's one of Heinrich's inconsistent throws that he has every week. And I think the quarterback battle talk continues, even though it probably shouldn't, because I thought Sims sealed his fate last week. But offense was just non-existent, man. It just wasn't there. Us putting a drive together, that 10-15 play that we've done through the season once is just a one-time thing for us in these games, man. We are an offense similar to Iowa. And I'll let you take that in for a second because I know it's hard to process, but this offense is as close as you can get without being as bad as they are. But it really is. I mean, Nebraska's offense isn't good. I think you knew that, but the way they play, very similar style. I mean, that's why I think it's going to be the worst football game of all time, but it's very similar style. Another point on the offense side of the ball, offense, I guess, but Brian Buschini was awful this week. One of his worst, probably his worst game he's played in Husker Red. 5 punts, and his net average was just over 34 yards. I think it was 35 actually, but 35 yards a punt. It's 15 yards further than they give you an automatic punt in Little League football. It can't happen. I don't know if he's riddled by injury or something, but let Alvano use his cannon. I mean, he's got to be able to get it 40 yards, which still is all right. But 35 yards is a joke. I don't know if the field was wet or it's too cold for him or what was going on, but he was terrible this week. We got murdered in the special teams area of the game. I thought Billy Kemp returning punts was fine. I thought he's a warrior for coming back that soon. But when you look at what he did, I think they brought him back just to catch the punt because Bullock didn't look comfortable that we had mentioned. But when you just take away the punt return, we got killed in special teams. We were in the worst field position spots a lot this week. But then they bring Ethan Nation in to try and make a play late in the game. If you're going to play the kid and burn a redshirt game, just let the kid play. I don't understand. I thought he showed a little spark. I would have liked to see him with a little bit more time because at Michigan State's punter was pretty good. But, I mean, if you're going to play him, play him. Well, don't burn a game and do stupid things. But let's dive back into the offense really quick. Like I said, I touched on the offensive line. They're not good. They were not good. I think they've improved, but they were not good. I thought Justin Evans-Jenkins had a down day. I thought Ben Scott was fine. Newelli didn't play great, and he actually mentioned that and admitted to it in his press conference that it wasn't his best game, but I thought they could be much better across the board even. I thought Ben Hart's bad. Man, I was such a critic of Ben Hart's play the last 3 years, and I finally just past couple of weeks have been like, all right, he's like significantly improved. He's much better, and he's not a guy that you're consistently seeing getting beat. This week he was consistently beat. I don't know what was going on, but he needs to bounce back quick, and the whole offensive line does for this offense to find anybody's success. I thought it was weird how early in the game we looked like we were running the ball well, right? I think everybody can agree on that. And I know people want to come down the play calling really hard, but you have to throw the ball sometimes. You can't. You got to be honest. You can't run the ball 50 straight times, right? Like you have to keep them honest in some sort because the Big Ten will just load the box and then all of a sudden that's eliminated. And then you force Heinrich to throw the ball. Like I thought they did a decent job at the beginning kind of pitching in those passes, but I saw a lot of 5 wide sets that I just did not agree with this week. Heinrich is a guy that should never be in a 5 wide set unless it's a straight draw. I mean, he's not a thrower, and I think he'll tell you that. And it's not really something that you can teach somebody to be an elite thrower. You can teach them to be a serviceable thrower, but when they chop their feet in the pocket and initially go through one read before they take off, it's really hard to get an offense going. And I know most people want to say, hey, this isn't all on Heinrich. It's a good majority of it, man. It's a good majority of it because there are playmakers on the outside, whether or not they're young and they're not our best because we are injuries across the board, but it makes a difference. I think Heinrich needs to be better about being in the pocket before just taking off because he doesn't have any jukes. The last couple of weeks, he has taken off, and when he gets to those points where he needs to make a move or go through somebody like he did weeks 1 and 2 he was in, he's not doing that anymore. I think he got a couple of licks hit on him, and he's chopping his feet a bit, and he needs to fix it fast. In the backfield, Emmett Johnson, leading carrier, 13 carries, 57 yards, and a score. I thought he was pretty good. I thought Grant was good too. I think they like Grant inside the tackle, and he tries to bust it out a little bit too much. But I thought the ground game was fine with the running backs. I mean, they made a couple of big plays. I would like to see this offense produce more plays through the run. Like I think our longest run this week was 11 yards from a back. I'm saying not from Heinrich. Obviously, he had that big scramble, but which was a good play. I feel like I've said a lot of negative about Heinrich, but I mean, he made that great scramble, 44 yards, sets up that Emmett Johnson touchdown towards the end of the game, but there was too much negative for that positive to outweigh it all. Back to the backs really quick. I just think that Nebraska needs to do a better job of creating those big plays off them. I think the best one I've seen is that Purdue touchdown run at the end of the game. But like, have you noticed we get beat on them all the time? We used to get beat on them a lot more, but those big plays where they run outside the tackle, they break a tackle, and then they get to the sideline and they're gone. We just never have those. And I know our offense isn't weaponized to have those, but it would be nice to see, like a nice change of pace to see one or two of those. And hopefully we can get them and win the 6th game that we're looking for. So that's the offense side of the ball. On the defense side of the ball, I didn't think Nebraska was terrible. I think this game, and which I already talked about, but I think this game comes down to this. On the offense side of the ball, you're 5 for 15 on 3rd down. You turn the ball over twice inside of 2 minutes when your defense gets you 2 chances down by 3 points, fumble and a pick. You only have 277 total yards on offense, and Michigan State made the biggest drive of the game, and that was set up off that trick play from Alante Brown to Montori right after we scored. We scored in the 2nd quarter. They go up 7-3. Michigan State answers in 6 plays in 2 minutes, and they're back ahead in the game, and they really never looked back. I mean, we put a good drive together to get 3 before the half. That was almost riddled by another Heinrich turnover. I know Rule got into him. I hope you like that Rule gets into him because he needs to. I think he's got a lot of experience to gain from this. And let me be clear, I'm not a Heinrich hater. I just think he has a lot of areas to improve in, and I don't know if we have any better options behind him. I know that's a big talk from a lot of Husker fans on the message boards, on social media platforms. Should we go to Sims? Should we go to Purdy? I mean, where is Chubba Purdy? He's not in any of these conversations. I don't know what kind of practice is, if he's still got an injury lingering after week 10, but what are you thinking if you're him within these? I mean, you got to be maybe taking a red shirt for him and you'll see him next year, but I can't see that either with the people we have coming in. I don't know. But if Heinrich, I know Rule had said that he doesn't think that he didn't consider another quarterback going in the game, but if you're Heinrich, I would feel very comfortable. I mean, the coaching staff's going to roll with you. I don't know what Rule said today, which is Monday, the day you're listening to this, hopefully. But I think you're going to be a Heinrich Harburg football team the rest of the year here on out, especially if they didn't consider it last weekend with how inconsistent he is throwing the football and how much we needed to, especially towards the end. So bad loss for Nebraska. I thought they came out a little bit flat, and it comes down to just being incapable of producing a good offense. I mean, the defense was good, man. You can say what you want, and the officiating was the officiating. They missed terrible calls. I know the pass interference was blatant as can be. The face mask blatant as can be. But when you give up 0 penalties for yourself, like we committed 0 penalties this week. How often has that happened in the Nebraska football history? Like, when's the last time we had a 0 penalty game? Seriously, think about it. We had 0 penalties called in the game. So I won't even include the officials on reasons that we lost, because the other team got hurt by penalties. We didn't. And we had our chances, man. Multiple chances that were riddled either by interceptions, fumbles, all by the same player, or we just couldn't put together. Bullock drops a 3rd and 6 pass on an important drive. We're on the 50-yard line. We punt. I just don't get it. Offensively, they got some stuff to figure out. And I get that there's injuries, but start doing some different stuff, man. Start doing, like, you've had 4 or 5 weeks now where you haven't been able to produce much offensively. 31 points is 31 points. I get that. And one of them was a special teams touchdown, but start doing some different stuff. Run some trick plays. Why don't we run any trick plays? It gets to be like a jet sweep as a trick play for this offense. And I don't want to put it all on the play calling because I know we're hurt. I know I keep kind of going back and forth, but there's no better way. I can't explain this offense. Can you? We have to be more capable when it comes to different things on the offense side of the ball. The defense is good. We just have to benefit it on the offense side of the ball. So that wraps up that game.
That's all I really want to say. 20-17, it's another one-score loss. Seen this movie before. But we can bounce back. The 6th win is still out there. Wisconsin gets beat by Indiana. Minnesota gets beat by Illinois. Iowa beats Northwestern in an absolute barn burner. Something like that. And then Maryland gets blasted by Penn State. So we got to go back into Lincoln. Crowd be loud. We'll preview that on Wednesday, but the opportunity is still there. And I know the fan base will still be there for him. So I'll catch you on Wednesday. Tune in to Play the Fight Song.